あーにゃんち、
そうだ。
テレビ。
つけてもいいぞ。
冒険アニメスパイ
あーにゃこれ好き。
よりによって。
Hey, baseball fans! Want to spend a day filled with interactive fun for the whole family? Want to get up close and personal to professional baseball action? And for the parents, do you want to do something to occupy the kids without breaking the bank? Then come on down to Campbell's Field and see your Camden Riversharks take the field and play ball.
You look like.
Oh, I got a text!
Here's something? I thought this is America.
Just let yourself.
We'll be covering poverty in America. Tonight we begin with the poorest city in the nation and the most dangerous city all in the same place. It's Camden, New Jersey, right across from Philly.
It's the 1990s, and Camden, New Jersey is in a downward spiral. The days of prosperity where numerous industries were thriving and employment was plentiful in the city were long gone. New York Shipbuilding, a company that employed 30,000 and was responsible for creating sea vessels for the U.S. military during World War II, went out of business due to a number of workplace accidents, and their plans for nuclear products and testing were met with backlash due to Camden's close proximity to Philadelphia. Victor, a company that employed 12,000 at its peak, was the world leader in phonograph manufacturing and a recording studio, where many well-known artists from yesteryears came to Camden to record hit records. But as technology advanced, so did the way we listen to music. As a result, phonographs were phased out of existence and became a novelty. Victor became no more, and their plant became dormant for many years. Campbell's, the company that grew to international success and fame while selling canned soup, would shut down their original production plant in Camden and would outsource their production to other parts of the U.S. and other countries. We are also over 2 decades removed from 2 separate riots taking place that forever changed the public perception of the city, which led to crime statistics skyrocketing in the city. Camden needs help, and quite frankly, Camden wasn't getting help from within their city as police incompetence and corruption from the mayor's office was rampant. If the city were to get help, it would have to come about 30 miles north along the Delaware River in Trenton. Enter Christy Whitman. The 50th governor of New Jersey, who served from 1994 to 2001, will be forever intertwined with Camden for 2 separate reasons. First had to do with an effort to learn more about Camden and the efforts the city was doing to turn around the reputation. So, in 1996, she accompanied the New Jersey State Police for a ride-along. During the ride-along, police officers stopped 16-year-old Sharon Rolax.
You need to stop everything.
Rolax was detained and searched for possible possession of contraband and weapons. After an initial search was conducted by police and no illegal firearms were on Rolax's person, he was searched again, this time by the spectator, the governor. This photo of a publicly elected official who happens to hold the position of being the most powerful person in the state of New Jersey, mind you, smiling while frisking an unarmed black person is not a very good look for public perception. The photo was taken by an officer who was also on patrol back in 1996. The photo remained unseen by the public for years until 2000 when it would surface in a local newspaper. You know, this is just the type of incomprehensible things that would happen in Camden and feel the negativity towards the city and figures of authority. But something had to be done. Camden was in a unique position where, due to its close proximity to Philadelphia, Camden's waterfront was also home to a lot of up-and-coming attractions being brought to the city, to include the New Jersey State Aquarium, which was opened in 1992. It is also the final resting place for the USS New Jersey, which is on the Camden waterfront. It is a ship that holds a distinction for being the most decorated battleship in the history of the United States Navy after it was decommissioned for the final time and opened officially as a museum in 2001. And in 1995, a concert pavilion and amphitheater was opened as the blockbuster Sony Music Entertainment Center. As you could tell with the blockbuster in its name, this was the 90s. But this was a very popular venue for many years, and it continues to be one to this day. There's also Rutgers University's Camden campus, which was located within the vicinity of the waterfront and has always been a generally positive spot for the city. There was a lot going on in Camden for good reason for once. Now let's go back to Governor Whitman because of reason number 2, why Whitman will forever be intertwined with Camden. She saw the movie Field of Dreams. A new baseball stadium was going to be built in Camden at the foot of the Ben Franklin Bridge. At the groundbreaking ceremony in 1999, Whitman referenced the 1989 film Field of Dreams. These partners have heard the message from the movie Field of Dreams: if you build it, they will come. Of course, that movie was about giving ball players a second chance of playing the game. Well, soon, we will see a Field of Dreams right here in Camden, and my prediction is they will come. Yup, they will come. If you are watching this video right now, don't let anyone tell you that the Mandela effect isn't real. If you build it, you will come. But the stage is set. A brand new stadium was built with, in my opinion, one of the greatest views of any sports stadium could ever conceive. The future was going to be bright for this new team and the city that they play for. The development wasn't going to stop with just a battleship museum or an aquarium, but this baseball team was just the beginning of something potentially great. This is a story of that team. America's most dangerous city had a baseball team, the Camden Riversharks. First, let's talk about the stadium. As mentioned before, ground was broken in 1999 and it resides here at 401 Delaware Avenue, and it was just a stone's throw away from Ben Franklin Bridge. The bridge is daunting as this inanimate object has a life of its own, similar to the Green Monster at Fenway. It has such a commanding presence as it demands respect of everyone no matter where you sit in the stadium, and it serves as a connection to Philadelphia to complete this masterpiece of a view that spans the entirety of the outfield. There are many views throughout the US that have fantastic shots of their stadium, and there are a lot of great ones to choose from. And I'm not saying that the view from the stadium in Camden is the best, but there isn't another one like it. So, location was taken care of. What about naming rights? Surely there was a large company still based in Camden that has a large influence on the city and their history that would jump at the opportunity to give back to their city in some way and have the capital to afford the naming rights. Well, that was a no-brainer. So, this new stadium would be called Campbell's Field. Okay, like I said, the sponsorship was a no-brainer. But who is going to pay for this stadium to be built? So according to my research, in the mid-90s, the state of New Jersey put forth over $127 million in public financing to build 6 stadiums across New Jersey to include Campbell's Field and Camden. Public records indicate that $21 million was spent through a combination of direct loans and bonds floated through a private bank. The breakdown of where this 21+ million came from is pictured with $7 million bank bond via the NJEDA, $2 million direct loan from the NJEDA, $6.5 million from the DRPA, $2 million grant from Rutgers University, and $3.7 million from equity, which was gotten by the builder. The NJEDA increased their loan power by an additional $1.2 million for upkeep by 2004. When the stadium was eventually completed, it would become property of Rutgers University, and they would take on the role of primary operator. No, not the Scarlet Knights, who are based up north in the main campus in Piscataway. Instead, we're talking about the Scarlet Raptors of Rutgers Camden. They have a campus nearby the stadium, and they are the Division III little brothers of the main campus, and would have their baseball games at Campbell's Field along with this new team. They would also sign a lease with the ownership of the new team to operate the stadium with the Atlantic League, who is the league that this baseball team would be a part of. Now we have our stadium with funding. What will be the name of the team that occupies this place? There was a contest held that would determine the name of the team, and the name that came up with were Riversharks. I don't know. It's kind of a generic name, kind of like the names that were available when creating your own team in Madden, but at least the name and logos make sense. Campbell's Field literally sits on the precipice of the Delaware River and next to a bridge. In my humble opinion, the teams with the best names in sports are tied into the local history, geography, and lore. It gives a sense of identity for the team, and it bonds the fans with the team and the ownership that cares for the community. And the best names are evident of this, like the Baltimore Ravens, the San Francisco 49ers, the New Jersey Devils, Indiana Pacers. Although it doesn't hold much significance in lore or history, the Riversharks make up for it in geographical importance. Okay, so we have our name. The last thing I wanted to cover was the competition that the Riversharks are going to be facing in the future. The Riversharks will be squaring off in the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball, or ALPB for short. The league had existed for 3 years prior to the Riversharks beginning play in 2001. This professional baseball league is not affiliated with Major League Baseball in any way. If you're not familiar with what I meant by being affiliated with Major League Baseball, fear not, I'll break this down for you. So, Major League Baseball is the top professional baseball league based in the United States and Canada that features the best competition and talent and features teams that you may be familiar with like the New York Yankees, New York Mets, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Boston Red Sox. There are 30 total teams in the MLB, and each of these 30 teams have 4 teams in minor league baseball, spread across 4 different competition levels of baseball with 1 team in each league: Single A, High A, Double A, and Triple A, with Triple A being the highest level of competition and Single A the lowest. When players are drafted by MLB teams, usually they will spend time in their minor league system until they perform well, then they will get promoted to the next level so they can continue to perform better, and so on. So teams could potentially have what is called homegrown talent as they stay within their minor league system and one day make it to the MLB. Another novelty associated with the minor league system are that star players may get injured and need to heal from their injuries. When it is time for them to start playing again, the MLB team will send that player to the minor leagues to do a rehabilitation assignment and play some games so that way they can get back into the swing of things. So, if you are a Trenton Thunder fan who for many years were following prospects within the New York Yankees minor league system, one day you might be able to get the chance to see your favorite Yankee players play a few games and not have to make a trip to the Bronx to see them if they were completing a rehab assignment. You could see Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, Roger Clemens, Andy Pettitte, or CC Sabathia. That's what makes the minor league baseball farm system interesting, as you can see players progress and play at a higher level while seeing certain MLB players make a trip to the minors for a stint. Back to the Camden Riversharks and the ALPB. No teams in this league were affiliated and provided the same novelty of the MLB minor leagues. Case in point. So when I made this video, I wanted to highlight who was the most well-known player to ever play for the Camden Riversharks. MLB players who are not signed to a team or in the minor leagues can choose to play in a different league as they see fit. Rickey Henderson, who was widely regarded as the greatest base stealer and leadoff hitter in MLB history, briefly had a 2-year stint with the ALPB for a different team called the New York Bears, after his days with the Dodgers were done in 2003. Rickey thought he still had it in him to compete in the MLB. When talking about his ability to play baseball at age 44, Rickey said, "If I feel I don't have the skills, I'd be happy to hang my shoes up and be with my kids. But I know I have the skill. The speed guys who could score runs, I think I'm better than the guys in the major leagues. Will I get the chance? If I don't feel I have the skills, I'd hang my shoes up. But I know I have the skill." Now, if you knew anything about Henderson, you would know that those quotes were only scratching the surface with regards to his persona. Now, there were other notable players to play for the ALPB like Jose Canseco, and oh look, it's me mentioning Roger Clemens for the second time in this video. But, who was the most notable player to ever be associated with the Camden Riversharks? That one name immediately stood out to me when I was looking at the Camden Riversharks Wikipedia page, and that was Jared Weaver.
The 29-year-old native of Southern California. And Casilla lifts one out toward right. Torrey Hunter giving chase, still going back. Jared Weaver has no hit. The Minnesota Twins.
Jared Weaver pitched in the MLB for 12 seasons, spending the majority of it with the Angels. He had a very respectable career, making the AL All-Star team 3 times. He led the MLB in strikeouts in 2010, led the American League in wins in 2012 and 2014. He finished second in Cy Young voting in 2011, and he even pitched a no-hitter in 2012. Needless to say, he was pretty good. When conducting my initial research for this video, I saw Weaver's name on the Riversharks Wikipedia page. Then I became curious to learn more about his stint with the team. So then I checked Weaver's Wikipedia page to see if there was anything worth mentioning. Camden, phrase not found. Okay. So then I decided to check his baseball reference page, but there was no history of him ever playing for the Camden Riversharks. Further research was necessary, and I found what I was looking for, which would provide an implication of what was to come with the Riversharks or a lack thereof. So Weaver played college baseball at Long Beach State University and had a very successful career, achieving numerous accolades, with the most prestigious being on the cover of MVP 07 NCAA Baseball. Weaver was projected to be one of the top picks in the 2004 draft. His agent had higher demands considering the caliber of his client, so a higher signing bonus was put on the table. And some of the early teams were off-put by that, and Weaver fell to the Angels at 12th overall, so they drafted him. The demands of a large signing bonus were still wanted by Weaver and his agent, and the Angels were reluctant to pay Weaver over $10 million for his bonus. And if Weaver wasn't going to get the money he wanted, he wasn't going to play. Now, for those that don't follow sports closely, this is what is called a holdout. Even though the Angels drafted Weaver and own his rights as a player, Weaver cannot play or officially participate in certain activities until he signs a contract with the Angels. If Weaver did not sign before the deadline on midnight May 31st, then Weaver would be eligible to re-enter the 2005 draft happening next month and be selected by another team. Things were looking bleak. So bleak that Weaver signed to play with the Camden Riversharks earlier in the month of May, so that way he could take his talents elsewhere in case of emergency and still pitch in actual games and not exclusively in bullpen sessions. Then, during the 11th hour on May 31st, an agreement was made between the two parties, and Weaver signed a contract with the Angels, albeit with less money, and Weaver soon began playing for the Angels minor league system. And for those wondering, Weaver never played a single game for Camden, but his name stands out from the rest on this list. An outlier by association, and his journey to even be a part of the ALPB was different than the likes of Ricky Henderson, Jose Canseco, and Roger Clemens. His peak was still ahead of him, and he didn't have to decline to reach the ALPB. But Weaver left his mark without ever playing a single game. With the Riversharks void of the primary redeeming qualities of a team in the minor league system, how would this team fare and how would they stay afloat? Now for a brief digression.
Here we go.
Guys, I love sports statistics. Moneyball is one of my favorite books and movies of all time. John Boyce is my biggest influence when I'm making these YouTube videos, and Foolish Baseball is one of my favorite baseball YouTubers. And when I make these videos, I try to attack them from every angle possible, and in this case, statistics, from the player and the team. But the ALPB has done a god-awful job over the years in the department of record keeping. The MLB has had comprehensive record keeping dating for every game on the schedule, dating all the way back to 1876, and has had a complete box score for each team on the schedule for over 100 years now. In trying to find a game-by-game breakdown to find oddities or anomalies to possibly tell some funny stories was extremely difficult. I tried to find box scores on Baseball Reference with no success. Fangraphs, no success either. Then I tried the ALPB website and found nothing. Then I found out that the ALPB outsourced their statistics and records keeping to a company called Point Streak, who currently keeps statistics for the ALPB, but it only goes back to 2010. But before that, nada. But ALPB, this is your league. This is your history and legacy. If it weren't for me randomly stumbling across Point Streak's website via Google, then some of this research wouldn't even be possible. I wasn't even aware of Point Streak's existence until I was 75% finished writing the script for this video. Why not also have these statistics and records on your website? If you work for an ALPB team or work for the league and you are watching this video right now, get your Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Maybe this is a reoccurring pattern that we'll be revisiting with the Camden Riversharks and the ALPB. Who knows? But We do know that the Riversharks began play in 2001, and to be expected with expansion franchises in their first season, they were bad. They finished with a 49-77 record and failed to make the playoffs. In their second season, they improved to 71-54 and made the playoffs, only to lose in the first round. Their third season, they improved once again to 78-48 and made the playoffs again. And once again, they lost in the first round of the playoffs. Now, 2003 is an important year in Riversharks history. Steve Schilling was the founder and CEO of the Camden Riversharks when the team was founded in 2001. Since owning the team, Schilling himself put forth his own money to cover some of the expenses and shortcomings with revenue. Those shortcomings were steep, as he was putting forward up to $1 million per season. Why? Probably because this venture meant a lot to him. There was a lot of care into the product being put forth from a spectator standpoint, and there was a lot of stuff to keep the kids entertained. Now, I couldn't find any statements from Schilling himself. Campbell's Field had a capacity of 6,700 seats, and at their best years of attendance in 2002 and 2003, the stadium was at 67% full for an average game. This and other revenue costs associated with running a baseball team to go along with paying rent to Rutgers Camden for Campbell's Field, it was adding up, and Schilling was bearing the burden. Paying a lease to play a sport in the stadium isn't something that many teams want to do, but it's necessary because it's a matter of circumstances. Also, because this is an independent professional baseball league with no affiliation with the MLB, that means that the team is directly responsible for paying the players' salaries as opposed to the MLB organization. What I mean by this is that the Orioles are footing the bill when it comes to paying the players in their minor league system, and the same goes for every other team in the MLB. Now, unfortunately, in 2003, Steve Schilling passed away from cancer. In the absence of his death, the estate of Schilling stepped forward into the role of ownership, and things were not looking good as they missed a payment of $200,000, and Santander Bank threatened to foreclose on the stadium in 2004 after the Riversharks defaulted and sought a bridge loan from the Delaware River Port Authority worth $2 million. We are only 3 years into the operation, and Camden was already being threatened with losing their team. A city losing their team. No. Not even the city. The Schilling family and friends losing this venture within a year of his passing would be absolutely brutal. It's like building a model train set that you've been working in the shed in your backyard that took years and effort to carefully craft the small details for the trees on the hills and the main station, and your wallet continuously taking a hit after you need new paint, a fancy steam locomotive model that produces fake smoke. Then your shithead cat gets in the shed, knocks over a conveniently placed lit candle as a plot device, and burns the tray set down to the floor of the shed. Luckily, the Riversharks were able to continue operating business as usual. An ownership group led by the ALPB executives made an agreement with the estate of Steve Schilling and acquired the team, and the front office of the Riversharks would remain in place. Momentarily, things were okay. 2004, the year following an impending doom for the franchise, led to their stadium, Campbell's Field, being named Ballpark of the Year by Baseball America. Many people were unaware that this same stadium was on the brink of an unfortunate fate, but it is now being heralded for its beauty. The product that played on the field had a respectable year, 76-49, made the playoffs again. This time, they made it to the ALPB Championship Series, but due to the inadequacy of stat keeping, there were no recorded box score posted online during the 2004 playoffs. So, the only recorded history we have is that the Camden Riversharks were swept in 3 games by the Long Island Ducks.
Fuck! You're kidding!
Judge.
2005, the Riversharks had a record of 80-60, but failed to make the playoffs. 2006, 61-65, failed to make the playoffs. The Riversharks have been mediocre apart from their 2 playoff appearances up until this point in 2006. Despite this, fans were still showing up to the games and enjoying themselves regardless. The baseball team themselves were never the drawing point that put asses in seats. It was largely the stadium views, the family-friendly atmosphere, and cheap prices that always had people turning out for the games. As I said before, the front office cared about the spectators and constantly ran promotional nights and fireworks shows that appealed to the kids. And on top of that, tickets were extremely cheap and families didn't need to break the bank to see a baseball game and pay a toll to cross the Ben Franklin Bridge. The Riversharks didn't need to be good to get people to come to the games. The same couldn't be said for what was happening on the other side of the Delaware River in South Philly. But 2006 will be an important year where something special was brewing. Philadelphia Phillies are an MLB team that have been around for a very long time. During that time, they have done very little winning. They did manage to win the World Series in 1980 after winning the NL East in 4 straight seasons. Then, in 1993, one of the most beloved rosters in Phillies history won the NL pennant and made it to the World Series. They would lose to Toronto after Joe Carter lived out the childhood dreams of millions of kids throughout history by hitting a walk-off home run to clinch the World Series in Game 6.
Touch 'em all, Joe! You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life!
Since 1993, the Phillies have had the misfortune of being in the same division as the Atlanta Braves, as the Phillies missed the postseason every year since 1993. As a result, Veterans Stadium was empty. The Vet was an absolute dumpster of a stadium, but the Philadelphia fans embraced this place as it had the grit and toughness that embodied the city. No matter what the fans said, it was still a dump, much like putting lipstick on a pig. But in 2004, Veterans Stadium would be no more, and the Phillies would have a new home in its place, Citizens Bank Park. Upon the creation of this new park, the fans came out to see the Phillies in droves, and the Phillies ranked 4th in attendance. Soon after the stadium opened, the Phillies would hit their stride as homegrown talent within the minor league system got promoted to the MLB team and made significant contributions. This group of players would be part of the core that would win the NL East 5 straight seasons from 2007 to 2011 and would even win the World Series in 2008.
World fucking champions!
When all this winning was going on, fans were actually showing up to the games. Now, there's much more of attachment to an established product that has its presence instilled into the culture of the locals. And since the Phillies were good again and playing baseball at a much higher talent level and quality, fans were immediately flocking to see the team in person. As I mentioned before, the Camden Riversharks' drawing point was the stadium and a cheaper alternative to the Phillies when they were bad. Now that the Phillies, an established team, have a fancy stadium of their own and have exciting homegrown talent that play an entertaining brand of baseball, the Phillies were clearly going to be the better option of who most people wanted to see in person. In 2006, Ryan Howard won the MVP and started something special with the Phillies, while the Riversharks were quickly becoming an afterthought within the tri-state area. With the rise of the Phillies, the Riversharks fell. In 2007, 67 and 59, lost in first round of the playoffs. 2008, 67 and 73, made it to the playoffs, made it to the ALPB Championship Series, but lost 3-1 to the Somerset Patriots. 2009, 62 and 78, failed to make the playoffs. The only other noteworthy thing that happened at Campbell's Field in 2009 was a concert featuring Flo Rida and T-Pain, the man that rhymed mansion with Wisconsin. I just wanted to point that out. It is the year 2010 and we have finally entered the era of complete stat keeping and box scores thanks to Point Streak. Now, would the statistics being recorded reflect greatly upon the Riversharks and have teen success? Nope. 62 and 77 did not make the playoffs. 2011, 57 and 67 did not make the playoffs. 2012, 62 and 77 did not make the playoffs. 2013, Wilson Valdez was a player who had a very uneventful career in the MLB, played for the Camden Riversharks for 1 season after he failed to make the Miami Marlins big league roster in 2013. He played for the Phillies for 2 seasons in 2010 and 2011. The one thing that he is best known for is pitching, despite him being a utility infielder. On May 26, 2011, Valdez made a relief pitching appearance. in the 19th inning. Yes, the 19th inning. Believe it or not, I watched this game in its entirety. It was awesome. Trust me. After the Phillies exhausted all of their bullpen after Danny Baez tossed 5 scoreless innings, Phillies manager Charlie Manuel decided to just throw Wilson Valdez out there. Top of the 19th, the game tied at 5. Valdez got the reigning NL MVP Joey Votto to fly out to center. 1 out. Then hit the next batter, Scott Rowland. Then got Jay Bruce to fly out to go along with Carlos Fisher. 3 outs. Bases loaded with 1 out. With Raul Ibanez at bat, he hits a sac fly to center field. Jimmy Rollins, who was on third base, tags up, scores the game-winning run. Phillies defeat the Reds 6-5, and the pitcher who was credited with the win was a position player. Only 2 players in MLB history have started a game playing in the field, then took the mound and recorded a win. Babe Ruth and Wilson Valdez. Barry Bonds, Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle, Roberto Clemente, Pedro Martinez, Bob Gibson, Greg Maddux, none of these players can hold a flame to Wilson Valdez. 2 years later, in 2013, Valdez would find himself in another high-leverage situation, this time in the ALPB, playing for the Camden Riversharks at home against the Long Island Ducks on June 19, 2013. Bottom of the 9th, with the game tied at 5 and a runner on second base, Wilson Valdez steps to the plate. Foul, called strike, foul. With the count 0-2, Valdez swings.
The 0-2 rips deep into center field, going back for it, over the head of Henry, rounding third base is Billy Race, and that will do it! A walk-off single for Wilson Valdez, and the Camden Riversharks win 6-5 in the bottom of the 9th inning.
Wilson Valdez played the role of hero for the big and now the small. Even though his baseball reference page isn't exactly the prettiest thing to look at, but in moments like these, he was a part of something big. Remember Roy Halladay's perfect game against the Marlins in 2010? Who was playing shortstop? Jimmy Rollins? No, it was Wilson Valdez. Rollins was injured and Valdez stepped up. Not only that, but the Phillies won 1-0. And who scored the only run of that game? Wilson Valdez. He was a note in a symphony that helped create something special. He just had the tendency to do that wherever he goes, despite being insignificant for the rest of the game. The Riversharks won against the Ducks in that game. They would go on and win another 53 games in 2013. And lose 86. They would miss the playoffs. 2014, 43 wins, 80 losses. The Riversharks had their worst season in franchise history, with their lowest win percentage for a season. The Riversharks had been losing habitually for years now, and fans are taking notice. Attendance has been on a steady decline over the years. Management had taken note of this and were seemingly trying to do anything to keep this team afloat. And one man was trying to keep this dream alive for as long as he could. Team president and general manager Adam Lorber has been through everything with the Camden Riversharks. The highs, the lows, the trials and tribulations. Lorber was originally hired to work in the team's sales department. Lorber was starry-eyed on his first day of work, excited for his new assignment, but received unfortunate news. Steve Schilling had died on that same day and the two had never met. Schilling would bear the burden of operating this baseball team by paying out of pocket to keep the machine up and running. Adam Lorber would do the same, not with money, but with his time and effort. After Schilling's death, the Riversharks would be run by a committee from the ALPB to include owners of other franchises. None of the other committee members or owners had any ties or associations with Camden in any way. Even though Lorber didn't, he had at least been with his team for some time and cared about the community. He didn't want to see Campbell's Field used in a way that didn't serve the city of Camden. He always thought that Campbell's Field should always be the epicenter of the community and aid in economic revitalization. The stadium did help in giving the city's Little League team a place to play to go along with various colleges like Rutgers Camden obviously, but St. Joe's and Temple University. Wait, Temple? Temple University? God damn it, man. Really? The baseball team too has stadium issues of their own? Man. The football team had it bad enough, but now the baseball team? Temple University? What the hell? You're making my school look bad. Okay, anyway, Lorber admitted that there was a lot of infighting within the organization that caused the team to fall on hard times by this point, but Lorber had invested so much into the team at this point, and wanted the product to be something that the fans would be proud of. If you gave him $6,000, instead of taking out an ad in the Courier Post, television, or radio, he would instead buy another mascot. Promotion nights have always been a tactic that the Riversharks have used over the years, but now they kicked it into high gear. Campbell's Field were showing screenings of Sharknado, there were ceremonies for vow renewals, and even having campouts for kids in the outfield. Despite the ingenuity from Adam Lorber to keep the ship afloat, the Riversharks were facing a lawsuit from Santander Bank because the team had been defaulting on $4.6 million for financing Campbell's Field. To compound the fact that attendance has been hurting the team to go along with poor on-field performance, the future was uncertain. It's another day where a player puts on the uniform because of their love of the game, or because it's a way to continue getting paid and earn a shot to play for a major league organization, and in some cases, it's all we know how to do.
I can't do nothing else but play football. Hey, don't worry.
Another day of someone putting on a mascot suit disguised as a miniature sauna to put a smile on the faces of children. Another day of dealing with disgruntled co-workers behind closed doors, then reassuring the public that everything is okay. We may not like every single thing about our jobs, but for some, it's a means to an end. But the future of the places we work at, for the majority of us, that's out of our hands. So in the end, there's only one thing to do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
The Camden Riversharks experiment would end, not with a bang, but a whimper. Another disappointment of the season. But this time, there were no questions about the future. During the year 2015, Camden County stepped in and purchased the property for $3.5 million to save it from being foreclosed by Santander Bank and settled the impending lawsuit against them. The EDA and DRPA negotiated to implement a ticket surcharge with the Riversharks that would last 15 years to get back a fraction of the money they were owed. But 4 months later, the team announced it couldn't work out a new lease with the county, and the team folded just after one payment. Reflecting on his time with the Riversharks, Adam Lorber said, "I wish we made more of a difference. I think we made a difference, but we could have made more of a difference." There are many times in our lives where events play out much differently in our minds, only to learn that expectations do not meet reality. Though well-intentioned, it just simply didn't work out. For many years, the writing was on the wall, but like Leela said earlier,
you gotta do what you gotta do.
And pray to whatever God you believe in to handle it. But the unquestionable presence may not pick up the phone every time we call. So what now? Rutgers Camden would continue playing baseball at Campbell's Field until 2018 with the absence of the Riversharks. But with the Riversharks being the primary tenant of Campbell's Field now gone, the property owners are not going to be making any more money off the property, so what would happen? Would a minor league baseball team be playing in Campbell's Field? Even though Campbell's Field is more than capable of doing so, the Phillies hold territory rights over the immediate South Jersey area. What that means is that if a team like the Kansas City Royals were to relocate one of their minor league affiliates to Camden, they would have to get approval from the Phillies to do that, since Campbell's Field is about 8 miles away. I never found any deal of that kind being negotiated with another team, but let's just say that if it did, the Phillies wouldn't allow it.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
One non-MLB affiliated team didn't fare well here, so why would another show up? So what happens then? Rutgers Camden could take back control of the stadium and make a purchase, or it could be in the hands of a corporation. In 2017, Amazon announced that they were requesting from a multitude of towns across the US, Canada, and Mexico proposals to set up shop for their new HQ2, which would serve as their corporate headquarters. Camden County submitted a bid that would require the demolition of Campbell's Field. This is a very big deal. Such a big deal that many cities and towns across the US, Canada, and Mexico were chomping at the bits for this opportunity. Then Governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, promised $7 billion in tax breaks so that Amazon would select Newark. The Pontiac Silverdome was for many years the home of the NFL's Detroit Lions. After the Lions left Pontiac for downtown Detroit, the Silverdome was left dormant for 6 years after their last tenant left. Then it was destroyed and Amazon purchased the property and turned the land into a distribution center and a delivery center. If that sounds interesting to you and you want to learn more, I recommend watching Bright Sun Films, and there are 2 videos, one about the history of the Silverdome and the second being their 2021 update. The plans were in place for Campbell's Field to meet the same fate as the Pontiac Silverdome, but what actually happened? There's only one way to find out. In May of 2022, a brand new athletic complex opened, and it stands where Campbell's Field once stood. This complex not only serves Rutgers Camden, but the community as well. Rutgers Camden now has their own track. In years past, the men's and women's track and field teams did not have a home of their own. For many years, schools in Camden, in particular the high schools, Camden High and Woodrow Wilson, had inadequate facilities. Instead of scrambling to make home meets and games happen at their schools through cleanup efforts and other miscellaneous circumstances, this is it. What stands here was not entirely in vain of what was here before. Campbell's Field was part of a revitalization effort within the city to help turn the image around. Though the Riversharks flopped, many other things turned around from the talking points I made in my History of Camden video. The RCA Victor building was no longer dormant and was transitioned into luxury apartments. The police I previously talked about in my first video, well, the City of Camden Police Department was dissolved in 2013. Jurisdiction was taken over by the newly formed Camden County Police Department. In 2019, it was reported that homicides decreased by 63%, and over the years, crime statistics have shown that Camden has gotten safer. The Philadelphia 76ers opened up their state-of-the-art practice facility in Camden, not far from the location of Campbell's Field. The Philadelphia 76ers chose to locate their facilities and team offices here in Camden as part of the Grow New Jersey tax credit program. When asked in a press conference if the facility would create jobs for the community, Sixers president Scott O'Neil replied, "We need a shooting guard." Hell yeah, that's what I like to hear. Give me a tryout, Daryl Morey. I'm 5 feet 9 inches tall. I haven't touched a basketball in about a year and a half. But I know for a fact that I would have a better shooting percentage from the free throw line than Ben Simmons did against the Hawks in the 2021 playoffs. Anyway, did the Camden Riversharks and Campbell's Field need to exist to help revitalize Camden? I don't know. Hindsight is always 2020, but you have to at least try. Beanie Siegel said it best. Play your cards, go against all odds, shoot for the moon. If you miss, you're still amongst those stars. It wasn't the stadium itself that changed the perception of the city or even the waterfront in particular. The Avenger Aquarium is still going strong to this day. There are still events and conferences going on at whatever the fuck this place is called nowadays, and the Battleship still remains a very popular tourist attraction. But for every success story that sticks, you get some that are just too ambitious, like this baseball team. In the case of the Riversharks, that misquote from Field of Dreams wasn't entirely true. People did come and enjoy their time, but when the main ticket in Philadelphia was good, they came out in droves to Citizens Bank Park instead. During that time, the Phillies dominated the NL East. There was one game that happened in Camden that I want to highlight. This 6-3 putout capped off a combined no-hitter as the Riversharks defeated the Somerset Patriots 10-0. No matter what level of baseball is being played, no-hitters are rare, and sharing the excitement is always a treat. The players know it, and the fans know it. Just learn to embrace the atmosphere, the feeling, the people, the setting, because all these things will not be around forever.